Good evening. This is Maestro Cortella with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 3v3 on what I believe is called Khatrin Purification Plant. Our first player is gbeastlord, playing as the Ravener Alpha. The Ravener Alpha is a Tyranid ranged hero who can build tunnels to get around the map very easily. Next up, we're going to have two Grey Knight Brother Captains. This is a tanky melee hero in Terminator armor with some spells later on. A little bit slow, but he cannot be knocked down or suppressed. First one is played by Sheitan, and the second one is played by Fear. On the red team, we're going to start off with Badgringo. I think that's an awesome name. We just need a bad hombre as well. He is playing as the Orc Warboss, tanky melee hero who can be knocked down and suppressed, but he's very aggressive, can charge, and tie things up. Next up, we've got Rostam 313 playing as the Inquisitor. This is an Imperial Guard spellcasting hero with some control abilities. And then finally, we've got firatwithin playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer. This is a long-range damage spellcasting and control hero. Night Lord's theme as well. Alright then. So, we finally got a 3v3. It's been a while since I've had a 3v3. These days it is actually a little bit harder to find good replays than it used to be, unfortunately. Game replays is not as active as it used to be. And there is a replay section of the Dawn of War Elite Mod site. However, it actually only has a 1v1 and a 2v2 section. And you know, I've always been a big fan of 1v1s, but I am aware that 3v3s generally make better casting material. They're generally a bit more watchable. They're more of a spectacle. It also holds for kind of different skill levels. A 3v3 can have players of anywhere between like intermediate skill level or better and still be very entertaining. Whereas a 1v1, it's actually 1v1s are often quite a bit less entertaining unless the players are at least pretty good. So, I'm not saying anything about the skill level of the players in this game. I honestly don't know what the skill level of the players in this game is. I'm familiar with a few of them. And by the way, Rostam right here, as the Imperial Guard player, is the one who sent me this replay. So, thanks to him for basically just giving me a replay that I can use. That will, I'm expecting to be a pretty good game. It's a nice 29-ish minutes long. Ooh, are we gonna see a squad of heretics go down there? Looks like it to me. It's just saying that they are still alive, maybe just upgraded to an aspiring champion, and maybe that's what allowed them to get out of there alive. Because it looked like they were about to die. Alright, but it also looks like the Tyranids are winning this engagement in spite of the Chaos Space Marines over here not taking any damage yet. Actually, this could still... Well, I think ultimately, yeah, Chaos should not be winning this engagement. Sorcerer will have to go soon. Yeah, he kind of just hit the sweet spot in that retreat point where he wasn't going to die. Meanwhile, Chaos Space Marines, I think part of what was going on with the Chaos Space Marines is that their damage isn't strong enough for them to, I guess, for them to save that engagement with everything else losing so many models. But they didn't take much damage themselves, and they weren't the focus either. We've got a double Sentinel build out of Rostam. I've always personally believed double Sentinel is a very, very powerful build, since it mitigates the main weakness of the Sentinel, which is the low damage. So then you get two units that are basically not going to bleed. Damage suddenly now is pretty good because you have two of them. The difficulties with having two Sentinels, though, is that now you have two units that are almost expected to die by the middle of Tier 2. Sentinels, as good as they are in Tier 1, it's a lot harder to keep them alive in Tier 2, especially in a team game. And to the extent that he might keep them alive in Tier 2 if he gets there, he will definitely need to get missile launchers on both of them, and then also be very conservative with how he uses them. So, but I think the Sentinels are a big part of what is winning this engagement for Rostam right here. It's not going that quickly, but the momentum of this fight definitely went in favor of the red team, with them slowly but surely forcing off the blue team. However, now Rostam has withdrawn his support, and the Shooter Boys were having a little bit of trouble weathering the storm of grenades that were coming out of the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. Alright, okay, looks like the Inquisitor has gotten the Holy Brazier, which I love to call the Holy Brazier at times, but it grants her the Holy Pyre ability, gives her a very, wow, is this squad gonna die? 1 hit point? Wow, makes it out with 1 hit point. Lucky for those stormtroopers living to fight another day. At least one of them is. So, red team overall looking pretty dominant, at least in the recent engagements, but they don't have the VP lead. Looks like, well, ever since they started winning the engagements, they haven't actually managed to capture the VP back. So, it's a 1-to-1 with the blue team actually having the higher number of, I guess, actual VPs, or basically it's 489 to 407. Looks like a bunch of Tyranids died over here. And we now have a Sorcerer with the Sword of Flame and the Vestments of the Warp. Not a bad upgrade. Will allow the Sorcerer to be much, much more aggressive. He can tie up Tyranid squads. He'll even do okay against the Hormagaunts, or even just whatever squad he decides to put against the Hormagaunts, because he can put that Coruscating Flame on them. You know, I've been saying Coruscating Flame for years. I don't even know what the word coruscating means. I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly. Should find out. Alright, Sentinels at this point, yeah, they're a little overextended. Luckily, they make it out of there alive. Not too overextended, but they were at the front. And, you know, Sentinels at times should be over at the front, but they still need to watch their positioning. Ideally, Sentinels want to be at their maximum range. They don't want to be... They're not supposed to be up close, unless they're really pressing an advantage that they already have. But they really need to have the advantage. So this is maximum range, good. And moving back as soon as, especially if they've upgraded to grenades on those stormtroopers, they can move out of the way of most of those grenades. We're going to have a nice engagement happen right here. Possibly Strike Squad coming in a little bit late to the party, trying to offer their DPS to focus down that Inquisitor. But instead it's the Grey Knight Brother Captain who's gotten stunned and is probably going to die right here. Yep, dies right there. So the red team between Badgringo as well as Rostam have been managing their engagements in the middle very well. Looks like firatwithin has been getting hit hard. I haven't been focusing on him a lot, but my guess is possibly getting a bit overrun now by double warriors, although the second warrior actually has the Barbed Strangler, which could actually be pretty nice. There come those Sentinel missile launchers, some nice burst damage going in on the stormtroopers. Could potentially be the end, especially if there is Sentinel Stomps, both Sentinel Stomps, but I think that Inquisitorial Stormtrooper is again. I don't know if it's the same one as before, but either way, it's going to get out of there alive. We have a lot of Inquisitorial Stormtrooper Sergeants making it out barely with their lives. So we've actually got a ranged Warboss right here, getting the enhanced custom shooter. Gives him some pretty good range DPS, 33.3 piercing DPS. He keeps decent melee damage, although clearly not as good as if he had either of the melee weapons that he would have access to. The Bang Bang Hammer, which I affectionately like to call the Gang Bang Hammer, as well as the Claw, which is just a lot more common for, honestly, very good reasons. Chaos Space Marines have Eternal War, getting an Aspiring Champion. At the point where they might lose a model, though, could go back to base to at least ensure that they, well, not ensure, but make it less likely that they will not lose one of those models. But I also think if, I thought possibly if firatwithin had committed to an engagement there, he could have won, but actually not with the Ravner Alpha coming around. So both Sentinels have been upgraded to missile launchers. Needs to be very careful when going around these tunnels, especially because I believe Crippling Poison does work on Sentinels. At least it used to. So the Sentinel getting the missile launcher changes it a lot. It changes it from being a sustained damage unit to a burst damage unit, and it really just goes from one end of the spectrum to another. Since in its multi-laser form, it really is sustained damage over a very slow period of time. Whereas with the missile launcher, it's really just about launching the barrage, then moving back. Also needs to be careful because those were 2 whipped barrages. And that is also one of the disadvantages of the missile launcher Sentinel, and also just an example of how it changes. So it really just changes the role of the Sentinel. And ultimately it needs to change that role because the multi-laser sentinel really just doesn't scale into tier 2, and especially not into tier 3. So he switched out the frag missiles and loaded in the crack missiles, quite possibly going to loot lost one sentinel. I mean, I think his micro there was a little bit slow. He's also claiming lag, actually. But it's honestly just so much harder to keep a sentinel alive in tier 2 than it is in tier 3. Meanwhile, I think firatwithin is actually getting hit pretty hard in his lane over here. He keeps losing squads, and consequently he keeps losing generators because he's losing engagements. Alright, so we see all these orange circle auras. That's got to be coming from the Warboss's boss pole, which works on the guardsmen as well. You know, you got to keep the boys in line, and including those Imperial Guard boys. Receive 50% less suppression, and also have 20% increased health. Anyway. Kind of helps with the blobby nature of the orcs. Might even help them win this engagement right here. Warboss needs to be a little careful because he's really tanking the majority of the fire, but I mean that's ultimately what he's supposed to do. We have the shooter boys right here who took almost no damage so far, although now they need to start pulling back. And I mean ultimately, although they got forced off, that is ultimately how the relationship between the shooter boys and the war boss is supposed to work out. The shooter boys really want to not take damage and let the war boss take damage. And then that just lets the shooter boys do their full damage. But I don't agree with the... Oh man, just look at that. So that, unfortunately, is the weakness of the shooter boys. They really just can't really... They're just not durable, basically. And against these durable Grey Knight squads, even though these Grey Knight squads probably be doing less DPS overall, they can just tank so much more. Wow, and there's the second Sentinel down, and that's pretty much exactly what I said. Double Sentinel, it was great in Tier 1, it was doing a lot in Tier 1, and now it's gone. So we've got kind of a new effect for the Purgation squad with their silencers, just kidding. Here are the silencers, effective against infantry, so I'll be completely honest and say that I was not ready for the silencers. Having a slightly different sound effect than the Psi cannons, and doing inferno damage instead of explosive damage. Inferno damage being the same type of damage that Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines have, so it's effective against all types of infantry, although not particularly effective against vehicles. Anyway, I think the Chimera needs to move back a little bit more. So the Chimera is kind of the replacement for the Sentinel for the Imperial Guards once they get to Tier 2. You get, instead of getting a vehicle with heavy infantry armor, you get a vehicle with actual vehicle armor. Alright, we've got a Tzeentch Dreadnought from firatwithin. It's in a little bit of trouble. Target priority is going to be a big thing, or teleporting it out, but the Sorcerer is dead, and he's dead right here. So that just means the Horn Dreadnought. Did I say Tzeentch Dreadnought? Horn Dreadnought is just gone. So is the Chimera. So really just, unfortunately, in a position where I think it was getting hit by maybe from two sides. And this is now, despite the early momentum looking in favor of the red team, this is now basically the blue team is at a pretty significant advantage. Look at the size of their armies, and the red team will be able to build it back up, especially most of the red team players actually have a pretty good amount of resources. firatwithin with the least, but that should at least allow him to get, looks like maybe used it to buy a Sorcerer back. No, he's getting Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines, which, even though it looks like he should get another unit, and maybe he should, Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines is a very, very good upgrade for him at the moment. Alright, a lot going in right here. Some Slugger Boys charging in. They're tanking a lot, doing a lot of damage. They might even wipe one of the Grey Knight squads. Alright, they're not going to wipe that Grey Knight squad, but, I mean, they did a decent job of doing what they needed to do. But it still looks like they're going to get pushed back a bit. Alright, moves back. but I don't think he really has... Yeah, he does not actually have anything to deal with the Grey Knight Dreadnought at the moment. I have a feeling he's going to try to go straight for knobs. No, he's going straight for a battle wagon, which, you know what, is not a bad idea. A battle wagon at this point would counter more or less everything, especially from the Grey Knights. Since the Grey Knights aren't really going to be able to lock down the battle wagon, as well as not really have strong long-range sources of AV, might force a, well, I was going to say force a Vindicare purchase out of fear. Looks like Sheitan already has one. And the Vindicare Assassin is, in my opinion, actually an excellent unit, but it's still only one unit, and you can only get one of them, and it might not quite be enough to deal with a battle wagon. In fact, I would even theorize that a battle wagon might counter the Vindicare Assassin anyway. Alright, some nice chaos engagements going on right here. Must have had a Dark Flames that I missed, because it just looked like the entire Tyranid army was on fire. That was enough to scare it off. Might even get one of the squads. Looks like, no, the Termagants, that low-health squad of Termagants, is going to get out of there alive. And it's suddenly really, really quiet. Alright, we're going to have the Guardsmen open fire, restart the engagement. We're going to have an attempted teleport by the Bloodletters. Unfortunately, I don't think that's a great teleport by the Bloodletters yet, and they end up having to retreat immediately. If they're really lucky, they won't lose a single model on retreat, and it looks like they're going to get really lucky. Meanwhile, one of the Brother Captains did go down there, which is pretty important, but it looks like... Oh no. Alright, this is done. It's completely done. That was, unfortunately, such a waste of a Blood Crusher. I gotta say that I don't think the Blood Crusher was ever a good choice. I mean, that was a late Blood Crusher, and a Blood Crusher is ultimately just not a good late-game unit. It really is a unit that has a very... ultimately a pretty brief window of time where it's effective. And if you miss that window of time, it's no longer a great choice, really. Just about anything would have been better than a Blood Crusher. Meanwhile, here come the Tyranids. Must have come out at a tunnel from somewhere. Ah, here's the tunnel. So, catching the Sorcerer a bit out of position. I think, yeah, Sorcerer is going to go down. Here's the support from Rostam. Rostam rocking a very, very powerful range blob, but he's getting way too close to the Tyranids, and this could cripple the engagement unless he's got some oh my god, can't talk. Some form of control. He's got the Excruciators, grants him the Assail ability, so I think he needs to use that a bit more. But I don't really see him using it yet. He is using the Holy Pyre, and that is actually a very good choice against the Tyranids. It does some light damage over time, and then it also debuffs them as well by 20%. Although ultimately it's still kind of a messy engagement with the Gene Stealers just running over anybody. Gene Stealers! Alright, Gene Stealers are finally going to retreat. They are out of range of... Actually, did they even have a war... Yeah, so here's the warriors with the adrenal glands, and it didn't look like the Gene Stealers were in the range of the warriors' synapse. Meanwhile, the battle wagon is basically being as effective as I thought it'd be. The battle wagon, you know, despite not being that commonly seen, is, in my opinion, an extremely, extremely good unit. I think Toila Lee, one of the best Dawn of War 2 players of all time, I believe he has personally said that the Battle Wagon is like the best unit in the game. And I think he was even being serious when he said that. I don't think it even gets enough credit, you know, as much as it is a super unit, but it's an extremely mobile super unit. So it has a lot more even chase potential as well as retreat potential than most of the other super units. It's got vehicle armor. It's got plenty of hit points, especially for how mobile it is. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is like a Razorback with 2,700 hit points and anti-vehicle damage. So, in my opinion, yeah, the Battle Wagon is a fantastic unit. Does still need to be careful with about the Battle Wagon getting overwhelmed. I think he is at the point where the Battle Wagon does need to move back. Although it could also kite a bit, especially against the Grey Knight Dreadnought. And the battle wagon, even though it doesn't do great anti-vehicle damage, the fact that it does anti-vehicle damage at all is really just a boon for it, because it's so mobile. It can kite most other vehicles in the game, chase down just about any other vehicle in the game, as well as outlast most other vehicles in the game. So there's the Vindicare Assassin. Looks like he has switched to the, I believe it's the Penetrator rounds, to actually get some anti-vehicle damage on the battle wagon. Although I'm not quite sure. It doesn't look like he's actually targeting the battle wagon. It looks like he might have switched to the Exodus rounds now to target the infantry instead, which could be a better choice. Since, I mean, if he can target the infantry, he will bleed the infantry. He's not going to bleed the battle wagon, and at the moment, they're not going to destroy it either with just a Vindicare Assassin kind of harassing it a little bit. They're going to need to commit hard to take out a battle wagon. Now we've also got some commandos. But here's where things are actually happening. Another confrontation between Chaos, the Nids, with the Guardsmen helping out. Okay, so we've got the double Khorne Dreadnought out of firatwithin. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it can potentially be very good, but it's also very, very committal. And it's really like he's either going to win his engagements or he's going to lose one of the Dreadnoughts. Meanwhile, we're going to see a call-in right here. This particular Dreadnought is out of position and is probably going to die, so he's going to lose another Dreadnought. You know, it makes me wonder if firatwithin does have like a warp on, if he has enough red for warp or if it's on cooldown, if he's even been using that. Because this Dreadnought is probably going to die as well. I think he at least warps that one. And part of the problem with a double Dreadnought build is that you can't warp both of them. That would cost a lot of red, and of course then there's the cooldown issue. You can only call down one, or warp one back. Meanwhile, here is the Baneblade, and I mean, if we notice, the Baneblade has 2,750 hit points, while the battle wagon is just 2,700. And especially if you consider how much faster the battle wagon is, how much more mobile it is, really just says a lot for how good the battle wagon can be. Baneblade will do more anti-vehicle damage, though. So, Red Team, despite Tier 2, where the Red Team had suffered a lot of losses, right now they're actually winning by quite a bit. They've got almost a 200-point VP lead. Their armies are now even again. With, well, the Tyranids constantly running over this lane. So at this point, firatwithin is mostly going to the middle. And you know what, at this point, that's not that bad of an idea. Both Rostam and badgringo aren't particularly suffering in terms of resources. firatwithin now going to commit. Good targeting choice by the Bloodletters to go for the Venom Brood, but they got knocked down by the Warriors. Now the Bloodletters are in a lot of trouble. We're going to see yet another Dreadnought go down for firatwithin. So this is not looking good for firatwithin, but Rostam is here to support some more, and man, we're gonna have the Sorcerer come back online in just a few seconds. We're gonna see a squad of aspiring champion heretics go down. Tyranids are going to be forced off. Can he finish off this Warrior Brood? No, not with that much hit points, as much damage as they are taking. Meanwhile, here's the Battle Wagon again. Battle Wagon scoring kills on retreat. It can do that, and that's just another thing. With the speed that it has, I think you would actually need to use this sounds almost weird to say, but the melee abilities of the Battle Wagon. I mean, that's part of one of the great things about the Battle Wagon. It's just about the only melee vehicle in the game. It literally can melee with that. Yeah, I mean, here it is. Right now I think it's using it as an escape instead. And that's just another thing, it can use that ability as an escape. But the Battle Wagon is incredible. And getting repairs from Guardsmen as well. So yeah, just in my opinion, the Battle Wagon is an incredible unit. Battle Wagon has also been doing a lot using its mobility. Whereas this Baneblade right here has been a lot more passive, but now the Baneblade is going to get its turn, and if the Baneblade does have an advantage over the Battle Wagon, I think it's quite a bit more powerful in terms of its damage output. We see the cannon shot. If anything, it does not need to move back as much as it is right now. If anything, I think the Baneblade should stay where it is. Okay, it does need to respect the Paladins, but at the same time, I think it's going to, as long as the Paladins are this unsupported, I think it ultimately will win, and I think the Baneblade needs to move back forward. Because the Baneblade right now, the Baneblade really isn't hard countered at the moment. You know what, and honestly, with the races that it's up against, it's not going to be that hard countered. So, I mean, to be fair, its positioning is fine now because it has to contend with these Gene Stealers, but I think that Baneblade needs to move back up. What are we going to have right here? Let's take a look. There are the Paladins coming in. Aspiring Champion Heretics go down. Demoler Cannon shot, unfortunately a complete miss. And the blue team has very few VPs left. The Paladins at this point do need to probably get out of there. Here's some support from some friendly Grey Knight Terminators as well as another squad of Paladins. Committing to this engagement with one of the Grey Knight brother captains getting the cap and getting a 2-to-1 for the blue team to keep them in this game, but I don't know how much longer they can hold on with a Baneblade, and you know, I completely missed the Orc Battle Wagon going down. I don't think we're going to miss these Paladins going down. They're going to do a bit of damage before they go down, though, with only 1 or so models left. Alright, Paladin is done. Warboss finished him off pretty quickly. And the Baneblade needs to actually be a bit more aggressive. Just kind of needs to see that there isn't a whole lot of powerful anti-vehicle against the Baneblade. And for what anti-vehicle there is, just needs to be tied up or disrupted or quickly DPS down. Fear now losing a lot of units. Orbital bombardments going in and hitting Jack. Meanwhile, we've got some Kashrkins out from someone. Kashrkins out from, really could only be Rostam. Don't know why I questioned that. But they're just going to do some incredible damage. We've got the Dark Flames there used as a mini nuke, something I personally almost never agree with, but you know, it is what it is, and I'm not the one playing. Warboss, I think he's actually in retreat here. Here is the second battle wagon, and that could possibly be the game for the blue team, well, in favor of the red team, with a BP lead of 270, unless the Ravener Alpha is going to go in now. He needs to go cap it now. He had a chance. He did have a chance. Although, to be completely honest, he probably wasn't going to survive it. Alright, and that concludes this game right here. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.